really weird. We'll do that really weird fake hello where we've pretended that you've just come on the screen, and in the magic of the podcast world, everyone will believe us. Brilliant. Okay, Harry and George Hardwick. Hello, how's it going?
All right, going good. Same old, same old.
Brilliant.
Harder spars. Yeah. Well, douche spars, as we call them in the gym.
Well, you've just finished training, have you, recently?
About an hour or so ago, yeah.
Right, and it was a hard sparring session, was it?
Yeah, the last maybe a few technical ones.
Especially with us two, it gets a bit sort of, I don't know, dickheadish.
Are you sparring against each other rather than other people at the gym?
We're mixing it up, but it's like it's when me and Harry go together. I think because there's not as much of that filter. We know how much we can push each other. That we just turn it in our beds against each other.
Yeah, it's like stuff that you just couldn't get away with other people in the gym who are your friends and that. But it's all right against your brother.
Like yeah, what? I mean, what do you mean by that? Like what kind of thing?
Like, you know, all like borderline headbutts when you're like jockeying for position and that kind of thing. Mouth smothers. Like you're just like really like grinding your forearm and like the hard bones into someone's jaw when you're attacking submissions.
There was one a while ago where you know, because I was training for a fight, and because of who was available, me and Harry just did 3 5s on the bounce, and he catches me inadvertently with an inside low kick that rides up into the groin, and he's done that inadvertently. And whilst he's saying sorry, I just inside low kick him back intentionally to the groin, just because I don't want to like build this mentality of going, oh, I'm sorry, you know, it's okay. I was just like, no, get it back. Boom.
Do you think that's
I understood as well? Like there was no anger. It was like, yeah, I understand. Like,
yeah, is it of benefit to you that the fact that there's someone in the gym that can push you that hard and treat it almost as close to a real fight as I suppose you're going to get outside of a real fight? Does that benefit you in any way, do you think?
Yeah, we haven't injured each other much doing all this dickhead stuff either. So yeah, so far it's been a benefit. I think when the first like catastrophically bad injury happens as a result of us being knobheads to each other, I think we'll probably have to like assess it a little bit. But for now, it's great.
And like Harry being the weight class below, there still hasn't been someone who will like push me to a point of fatigue like he does. That's just his thing. He's stubborn.
Yeah, I am. You know, there's plenty of other people who have all the traits George does.
And so we've used pushing each other on the kind of physical side of things and taking it to a different level with the kind of mental side of fighting, and that kind of, you know, place that you need to have your head, you know, leading up to a fight and walking out to a fight and fighting. Is that something that you openly talk to each other about as well?
Well, there's not a lot going on in our heads, to be honest. So, you know, I was trying to explain this where, you know, our last fights on the trilogy, me and Harry were staring our opponents out with like posturing and stuff, but we're not really thinking of anything at the time. As before the Truman fight, I was like giving him, you know, staring back, you know, matching the energy, and I was just trying not to shit myself. My guts were very bad, so like, there's nothing like deep going on behind the eyes, really.
Yeah, with the Ndoye one where I like stared at him and stalked him through the cage. I remember
that looked really intense. That looked really intense.
Oh, I felt nothing. Like there was like you know, my heart rate was probably a bit above normal, but I had to stop myself laughing at two things. One, when he came in the cage, like I like to stomp the floor when I get in there. I don't know why, I just do. I like to stomp the floor when I get in the cage. I don't know if he'd seen me and he was copying, or it's just something he does. But when he first walks in the cage and stomps the ground, his foot slips. It looks really stupid, and I had to stop myself laughing then. And then I thought, oh, I'll just get in his face a bit. And as I got in his face, Mark Goddard separated us like I was like a disobedient child, which I also found pretty funny. So I had to like stop myself laughing a bit, to be honest.
So, in regards to them kind of sort of stare downs, because I watched that and I thought that was pretty intense. And so, when people, you hear other fighters say, "Oh, and I'll take, these media opportunities, I'll take this chance to kind of stare into them," and I'm staring straight into their soul, and I'm, if I win over this, I'm getting the mental edge over it. Do you not subscribe to any of that?
Well, you can use that time to sort of analyze them a little bit, but
it's preparation. It's just your training. So it's like you can make as much as you want to out of it, but it's who's prepared better.
I think there's like some little reads you can make. Like, when I fought in Croatia, that guy seemed to be very like timid when I was staring at him. Like, just his body language was quite timid. But it's not. It doesn't make a huge difference. Like, fights are almost just predetermined by that point. You just got to let stuff happen.
Well, let's take you back a bit. We always like to start these shows by talking about how people got into martial arts. And I wanted to know, like, because you both grew up in Middlesbrough, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that a tough place to grow up in? Did you feel like you needed to be tough to grow up in Middlesbrough?
Probably, but we're too stupid to realise. No, to be fair, our parents have worked quite hard, so we're in a sort of slightly nicer area, but it doesn't take it would take like a 5-minute walk, and you're in places where you've got to be quite careful. But I don't know. You literally just realised at some point when you were a teenager that you do nothing.
Yeah, I thought I'll start boxing, but when I googled it, Thai boxing came up, so I did that. There's
destiny. That's destiny right there.
Everyone talks about
Thai boxing came up.
These great stories where they've had to overcome some bullying or some real issue in their life, and I'd get home, I'd play PS2 for 6 hours and go to bed. And at some point, I thought, yeah, I should probably do something.
See, I didn't do that. I just played PS2 or 3 for hours on end. I didn't do anything.
And so when you first got into the gym, and that was Muay Thai, yeah?
Yeah.
Like, was that something that took a while for you to go, oh, I'll stick at this? Or was that something that you enjoyed straight away? And did you feel that you had a natural ability at it? Did it come pretty easily to you?
We both enjoyed it straight away, but I think we were both pretty shit for a while. Like, looking back on it now, we were the beginners that just, we like sometimes we'll get annoyed with something like beginners will come in the gym and they'll just not learn for ages. But we were that, and it's like we've got to be a bit more understanding with people who are coming to our gym. We were crap for ages, and then Duncan, one of our old training partners back at the Thai boxing gym, said he remembers going away to Thailand for a few months, and then when he come back, we'd suddenly just like learned how to learn things, and we weren't shit anymore, and it sort of snowballed from there.
And so, go on, Blake. No, I just want to know, like, at what point did you get to in Muay Thai? Was you competing in Muay Thai before you then sort of transitioned into, other martial arts? And what was that journey? Was that then, oh, there's an MMA club there? Or was it, I'm going to go and learn BJJ? Or like, what was that, how did that journey kind of present itself?
Yeah, I think when we started Muay Thai, we were doing it with the mind to get into MMA.
All right.
Watched a lot of that show Human Weapon, where they go around and learn all the martial arts and stuff. So I thought, I want to do MMA at some point, but just got into competing in Muay Thai at a junior level. I won the belt of some pub in Salford that's burnt down now. Very prestigious.
And then, we didn't even know that was for a title.
Yeah.
We just fought in some club in Salford, which had a gym attached to it. And then they put a belt around George's waist afterwards. He was like, yeah, one of our coaches went to teach
somewhere where it teaches MMA, which was Middlesbrough Fight Academy. So we just thought we'll go there.
That's been our gym since we started MMA.
Nice. And am I right in thinking, because I think I've heard you say this in an interview, that your parents aren't overly keen on you being fighters and they'd be quite happy for you to retire? Is that true? I'm pretty sure I heard you say that in an interview, unless you were maybe joking.
Like, they're happy that we're happy and pursuing something that we want to pursue. But I reckon if we were to just say, all right, I'm done fighting now, that like, I think Mum would be quite happy about it. It's stressful for him. Every couple of months we just go, right, we're off to somewhere and just stay somewhere for a few days and have a fight with someone and come back. But I think when we start telling the stories of just stuff that happens on these fight trips and just how people we meet and all this I think they can start to realize why it's such a sort of attractive lifestyle to us. But our dad just was like dead astute with what he said about it. Like this, he's got a really sort of overly rational, analytic mind for a bit of a moron and a giant child, which he is. But the way he said it to me just once, it was just like, fight. The way that the payment works in fighting is a pyramid. If you're not at the top of the pyramid, you're not making any money. So if you're in fighting, that's what you want to be aiming for. And then he was like, and then at just some other point, he said, you're not just in sports, you're in sports entertainment. You need to be thinking about that as well. So you're not just a sportsman, you're an entertainer as well. So just quite, for someone who doesn't give the slightest fuck about MMA at all, or combat sports in general, really, it was some pretty good advice he gave, some good analysis of what.
Well, on that note of sports entertainment, I mean, being brothers, I think in some ways sort of helps. I think it sort of interests people. And I wanted to know from your perspective, I mean, fans seem to love it. Obviously, there's the Diaz brothers and the Edwards brothers, but even in other sports, you've got the Neville brothers, you've got the Williams sisters, you've got stuff like that. From your perspective, do you feel an extra interest in you because you're brothers? And if so, why do you think people are interested in siblings that are in the same sport?
Well, I suppose it's like two for the price of one, isn't it? And then there's always someone to bounce off, with it.
Yeah, and it's like if you're fighting on the same show, it's the same surname as being said twice as much.
Yeah.
The same names being said twice as much. Or if you're fighting, it's like you end up sort of fighting more regularly. I don't know if it's your siblings when you're growing up, even if you don't grow into sports, there's still kind of like there's still a bit of a rivalry with any siblings. It's just how human beings are. I don't know if that element interests people. Like, like they're your first rival and your first friend is always your siblings, really. And it's like seeing people who've essentially took that competitiveness almost as far as it can go. I don't know. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it and waffling.
No, I don't think you are. I think you're absolutely right. I think that's quite an interesting way of looking at it. Your sibling is your first rival and your first friend. I think that's quite eloquently put. I really like that. And
that's the first time someone from Middlesbrough has ever said anything eloquent.
Well, I've seen Teesside Tintin. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah.
So
I think the guy, because there was Borough Pat as well, which was like Postman Pat dubbed with Borough. I think he lived down the road for a while.
Really?
Yeah, he lived on our road for a while. I'm sure of it. Mum knew who made it, and we got like a letter addressed to the wrong house, and it was that person's name. She's like, oh.
So people gone.
Just again to touch on like being brothers and that. Do you have any like noticeable differences like to approaching fighting, training, weight cut?
I think because we're physically quite different, we have to approach things a little bit differently. it's like, I think just because during sort of my late teens, you know, like the most formative years, that's when I was doing Thai boxing and I was running twice a day and I was fucking starving myself to try and make weight for these Thai boxing fights. I think that's had like a lasting effect where I'm like skinnier forever. Whereas in George's late teens, during his formative years, he was not running twice a day and he was wrestling and he was like grappling fully grown men. So I think that's why there's like the sort of difference in build with both of us. So it's like George has to be a lot more on his weight, sort of further out from the fight, and yet, you know, probably has to train a bit more cardio, whereas like I can almost neglect it sometimes and it's still there. Like I can almost totally neglect my cardio and it's just there. Like it's just sort of how I am.
And then mentally, in terms of like analyzing things, you know, there's a bit of a difference between us because I'm quite academic. I've got like a degree, I've got like a first in that, but I've just, you know, and Harry's got fuck all. He's got like an E in philosophy and rocks, and he's got an E in philosophy and an E in geology. So it's like he can ponder the existence of some fucking rocks.
Yeah.
But if you were to speak to us, I just try and be a bit thicker these days, and it seems to work out for me.
I'd say I'm probably the more overthinky one. Like if other people from the gym are fighting, I will at some point lose sleep over like just thinking, well, all right, they need to do this, right? We need to get this sorted, we need to do this. Like I'm not as much like that with my own fights and with myself. Like I think with your own fights, you just got to just dumb it down. Like you've almost just got to become a bit dim towards fight time. Like just I'm gonna have a fight. I'm just gonna scrap it. Like you can do a lot of harm to your own performance by overthinking it. And I think just being dumb and just almost ignorant to what you're about to put your body through, and just trusting your training.
Because I used to be like a terrible overthinker when I was around like university age, and I've just tried to get over the years. I'm trying to get to that fun level of brain damage where you're not a cabbage, but you've just taken the edge off, so you don't think about stuff too much.
Oh God.
Well,
go on, Stu, you can pick up from that.
I want to ask George, coming off the win with Truman, you shouted at the camera, someone ordered Truman a pizza. What's the story behind that?
Oh God! If I got a slice of pizza every time I've been asked that story since then, I'd be a very happy heavyweight. But so basically, the crux of it is we've rehydrated. We've done all the rehydration proper. We're having a nice pasta thing we've ordered in, but we also ordered in just a little pizza as well. Not like heavy on the cheese, like you know, not
just like a thin. It was just loads of starch and salt, which is at that point what your body needs.
And then Dean Truman comes over with some of his lads, and they're a bit snarky about the pizza, like, I'm the pizza boy, which I didn't mind. And then they're kind of like, oh, nutritious, which I didn't mind. But then I went, what, do you want a slice?
No, you're missing the fact that we were sat there and Truman, I don't know if it was like some kid trying to fit in with the cool kids at school, like poked his head between us. You and the pizza boys, and like did this really weird like breathe. He said, like, I always remember the tone he said it. It was like, what the fuck's you?
But even then, I wasn't that bothered. But then I offered him a slice, and he turned it down, which is like, you know, I don't understand the mentality of turning down free pizza, especially when he's weighed in.
So that's what's upset you the most is you've offered someone a pizza slice. They've said no. And that's just deeply offended you.
Yeah, and then so
if anyone ever offers you food, they better fucking take it. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, it's like anyone offers me any pizza anytime, I'm down for it. You know, I don't want to do any disrespect.
It's clean plates all the time in our house. Like when we fought in Croatia, George got up to like 87 kilos because the restaurant in the hotel kept giving us these massive like baskets of this bread that they'd done in the pizza oven that they had there. It was this really nice bread, but I was cutting weight, but we couldn't like just it's not in our like mentality to leave that food. So George had to eat the entire basket of bread.
I just really wanted so I was quite heroic in that sense. But anyway, so I've hit him with the body shot. I shout about the pizza and what have you. And then when he's like on the floor and he's starting to come around, his body's fine. First thing I do is I offer him some pizza. I'm like, oh, do you want some free pizza? The offer for pizza is still there. I can get you some pizza. And then he just has a laugh. And that's like probably one of the last things I said to him.
And then this is a weird part of the story. This is where it gets a bit strange. So our coach, Peter Irving, was in our corner. And I don't know where it got lost in translation with Dan Hardy and Dean Truman. I don't know if it's like our accents and their accents clashing, but they thought we'd called Dan Hardy out for Pete. So like there was like a bit of a confrontation backstage. And Pete was like, no, look, I'm the most retired fighter that there is. My body's knackered. I struggle with stairs. Like,
do you think I said, get this man to Peter?
Get this man Pete, sir. Like, I don't know if it's just an accent thing or he was, obviously like Hardy would have been a bit down his, it's rough cornering people when they get finished. And you can't really like think straight. But yeah, just a very strange thing that happened.
That is strange. I mean, well, look, let me ask you both about the kind of emotional impact of watching each other fight, because I think I've understood that both of you seem to kind of be able to deal with your own fights maybe better than the fights of your brother. So, Harry, I wanted to ask you, I think you said that before your fight at the last trilogy, you'd watched George win and you were buzzing because he won, but that wasted some energy for you. And then you had to kind of build yourself back up for your own fight. So I want to know, how tricky was that to build yourself back up? And will you change things for the next fight? Like, will you go first rather than second or anything like that? And then George, I wanted to ask you, you've said that, cornering Harry can be more tiring than having your own fights. Can you talk us through like how difficult it is to actually corner your brother and to kind of stay professional and focused when it's your flesh and blood in there going through this, particularly with that Ndoye fight? That was quite a grueling fight.
Yeah, I think I don't know, I could have controlled it a little bit better, to be fair. It was just like I got that excited because I really like body shots as well. And it was like, we're each other's striking coach. And it was like I had to take that left hook to the body through the body pad for however many weeks leading up to the fight. And it was fucking horrible. So there was that bit of, hey, that's worked. But I don't know, I had like a bit of I should have just managed it better, or I should have just not watched the fight or something.
I was aware of that coming back into the changing rooms. I didn't want to be, there was like a 5 minute, it's cool. Bring the energy back down.
The thing is, George, I don't know if he's a bit of a sociopath. When we had it the other way around and fought in Milan, I fought first that time. George was, because of the way that Bellator was sort of running it, they didn't want many people in the venue at once. It even fucking made no difference. We were all in the same hotel. But George just watched, Uncle Roger.
Yeah,
He just didn't even watch my fight, and then I had this really stressful time trying to get back into the venue because some very intimidating looking security guards just went, "No, you'll get back on the bus." And I don't think they spoke a word of English. I had like dry mouth from my fight, and I was fucking screaming at them, "No, I'm just fucking like blah." They're just doing the job. But I managed to get back in the arena. I was like running through, like trying to find George. I get in, and it was just he's getting his hands dropped. What happened?
Yeah, I remember that because I was like scrolling through my phone. I'm having a shit, and I'm like, I see, Bellator Euro prelims. Oh, Harry might be fine now. Scroll past. Just find some cooking video somewhere. It's like Uncle Roger ripping in. There was Jamie Oliver and the other one he ripped into. I can't remember, but he was ripping into someone about fried rice because that's his shtick.
So, how was the emotional? I mean, I don't know if I need to ask, but when you were actually cornering Harry and you actually were watching his fight rather than just watching things on YouTube or whatever you were watching, when you're actually cornering him, how are the emotions of that, or are you equally blasé?
See, because the last time it was I'd fought and then I'd cornered, and when I could let myself kind of get carried away with it when I was cornering, because I didn't have a fight coming up. I just got my fight out the way. But I think I cornered better having already had a fight.
I thought that in Milan as well. I don't know if it's like something to do with like your brain being well switched on, but I felt like that might be some of the best cornering I've ever done. Was after I'd fought.
But yeah, and then after Harry's fight, because my heart just fucking sunk when he got dropped with the left hook, and then he starts swinging back and he's bouncing around. Like, "Ugh." He gets kicked in the dick, and I just shout, "Milk it!" Like the time period, not the dick, but you know, it's this stressful fight. And there was just
straight back after.
and then there was this big dump. I'm walking around backstage, and I just kind of like flop on the floor and have a little nap for about 10 to 15 minutes. I think it's one of the guys who works at Cage Warriors, Kieran, was like, "You okay there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I just need to lie down." And he's like, "It's quite dark. Someone might walk on you." No.
Yeah, well, like you weren't in that fight. That was one of the most horrendous experiences of my entire existence. Like, I can't begin to describe how tired I was going back to my stool. Well, there wasn't a stool, but just going back to my corner before the third round, I just felt like my legs didn't work, and like no matter how hard I breathed, I just couldn't get enough air in. Because Ndoye's tough, and I didn't expect him to be able to like hang with the pace as well as he did.
Well, I have to say, I thought that was possibly my favorite fight of the trilogy. I mean, it was an amazing performance, and it was such a grueling fight between the two of you. And I think what really solidified it for me as probably my favorite fight of the tournament was after the fight, the way you were kind of sort of consoling him, and you had that kind of mutual respect together in the cage after the. I mean, he seemed disappointed that he didn't win. I have to say, from watching it, I thought it was clear that you did win. So I was surprised that he was thinking he was going to win. But I suppose it's very hard to be able to try and score fights when you're in them like that. But it was an amazing fight. And I wanted to ask you kind of how you felt afterwards, which you've touched upon there, but also when you get those kind of split decisions wins and they are tough fights, do you have any sympathy for your opponent? Or are you just thinking, oh no, I'm just fucking happy I won?
Well, that fight, it was like just it's like the fight itself was that taxing. I think my blood sugar and my testosterone were probably in like minus numbers by the time the decision was declared. So I was just tired. I was a bit confused. I didn't really know like how to score it. I knew I definitely won the second round. I was pretty certain I'd won the third, but I wasn't sure. And it's just, you know, when George and Pete in my corner, they weren't doing the thing that you see people, well, what his corner were doing, which is where they're just going, oh yeah, you've won that, that's your fight. Yeah, but before the decision was declared, because what's the fucking point? It's like they'd kind of, you know, and Doy's he seemed like a pretty emotional guy, and he seemed like, yeah, like okay, like they built him up, and then like as the decision got declared, it like crashed him back down a bit. But I was just telling him, you know, no losers in that fight. I mean, he fought his heart out. Like that's maybe the best I've seen him fight, and I'm not just saying that because I fought against him there, but it's like, you know, there was noticeable improvements from like, you know, there was the fight where he fought Kieran Clark, and then there was noticeable, like really noticeable improvements from that fight to the Corin Eaton fight, and then there was noticeable improvements again from the Corin Eaton fight to the fight with me. So it was like he was good, and he fought well. He probably just poured a lot of effort in and was disappointed. So I was consoling him. Like I've been on the end of a like bad decision. It's hard. I don't think that was a bad decision, but it's just I don't know.
There was a bit backstage as well where you were like, "Oh, if I'm ever in France,
no, if I'm ever in Paris, I'll come train with you. Don't come to Middlesbrough."
Yeah, he said, "Oh, if I come to Middlesbrough,
don't.
And we're like, no,
avoid it.
Unless you're coming for chicken parmos.
Yeah, we've got parmos, and that's about it.
The rest is a shithole, apart from.
I was going to ask you, is that your go-to meal after fights, the chicken parmo?
Yeah. So, like, the pork parmo, if you get a good one, is better than the chicken parmo. But it's just very few places can actually do a good pork parmo. And
if a bad pork parmo was bad, it's like a leather boot with cheese on it. But a good pork parmo was really good.
Yeah, we were actually talking to Paddy about this, Paddy Pimlet, when we went to train at Next Gen, because he was talking about how he didn't like Middlesbrough because one of the away games he went to was one of the times Middlesbrough managed to beat Liverpool. And it was like local, like, Middlesbrough born and bred guy, Stuart Downing, scored one of the goals. And then he was just apparently shit when he moved to Liverpool. And I was like, yeah, well, he won't have parmos anymore, so he'll have lost his fuel, he'll have lost his power. And then Paddy was like, oh, what's a parmo? And I was like, oh, it's fried breaded chicken with bechamel sauce and cheese. And now, like, Paddy was once texting him at like midnight about parmos. He's like, oh, I've got to try one of them.
Well, we've just spoken before we've had this interview with you. We just spoke to Nathan Fletcher, and he said that you boys had been there and have been training. I mean, what do you? I mean, looking at the UK MMA scene at the moment, it's on fire, and to go to Next Gen, like the atmosphere there must have been incredible at the moment. You know, they've got some exciting things happening there, and just to get your thoughts really on training there. And the fighters that you trained with there, and just does it feel? It certainly does to us. Does it feel like a really good time for UK MMA?
Yeah, it feels like it's a good time and it's getting better. And honestly, with Next Gen, the vibe we got there was quite similar to the vibe we've got at Middlesbrough Fight Academy. Like, obviously, we've only got us two and another lad who was pro. So, like, they're much further on as far as like having a full built-up, established fight team. But they're one of like premier gyms in the UK. They're one of the few gyms to produce from the ground up multiple UFC fighters. But yeah, it was like everyone trained really well. The training was really good. It was quite interesting. The way that they were structuring the pro sessions, they got lots done. Yeah, it was class. Really good experience.
Definitely want to go there for a bit of a longer trip. Like, we only went there like a couple of days. We had a few lads from our gym fighting, and we didn't want to, go off and train somewhere else for ages whilst they're preparing for fights. So we were only there like a couple of days, but we definitely want to get a week there at least. So
yeah, like a week maybe where we don't have fights coming up, where we can just focus on getting loads of good training in, loads of Casa Italia. We went to an Italian restaurant, and Paddy and all that were like, yeah, that's the best one in Liverpool. I don't know how the garlic bread was that much nicer than other garlic. Well, like, it confuses me. Like, I don't understand how the garlic butter was that much better. Like, it blows my mind. But I would like to try more than just that on the menu. Well, like, more of the menu there. I would like to maybe go on the sesh with Paddy, because I've heard some stories of what that's like. So maybe just stay a full week, get loads of training in, and then just have like a big weekend in Liverpool. That
sounds like a YouTube series or something. I'd watch that. I'd subscribe to that channel, I think.
I'd try, but I don't know if I could last like an hour on a proper session without just thinking, I need to go home and play my Nintendo Switch and have a chamomile tea.
I mean, whilst we're talking about Paddy, obviously we've seen him go from Cage Warriors to creating an absolute storm in the UFC, and what a start he's made there. And we've seen Ian Gary's now got a fight announced, going from Cage Warriors, and obviously the history is rich in fighters from Cage Warriors moving up into the UFC. Is that a road that both of you are looking to sort of proceed down?
Yeah, just take our time with it. No rush. We'll go when we want. Like, I'm not like clawing at it like, if the UFC were, I based on my last fight, I think I need just a another couple of fights to sort myself out, sort out a few of the mistakes. But yeah, it'll happen.
Consistently, especially after all COVID, and it's been a bit of a ball ache. I just want fights consistently. I'm not, sometimes I've seen people get up a bit higher in the division. Maybe they've won a belt, and then it all just becomes about, oh, who's managing me here, or what's the right fight to take to get into the UFC or whatever. Or they're just trying to like put the fights on the back burner whilst building social media. And really, I just want to fight a lot.
Yeah,
I want 3 to 4 fights a year at least.
Well, in terms, go on.
well, I was just about to say I'm the same. Really, it's like I've never had more than 2 professional MMA fights in a calendar year. So, they've not announced them yet, have they? Well, we're on the trilogy. Fuck it. So we're on the next trilogy. So like this will be my 3rd fight this year, which I'll be buzzing for, and I can hopefully get a 4th in. But yeah, like that's the year I've always wanted. Really, it's just various other like bollocks has got in the way of it. But yeah, so hopefully I can get 4-0 this year.
Well, just to put you at ease, these are all part of the Cage Warriors Trilogy Specials. So we knew you were on the trilogy. You haven't like given anything away there or anything like that. You're not going to be in trouble with Graham Boylan or anything. But I wanted to know what happened with Bellator, because you were part of their roster as far as I know, and then you wanted to say something then, George.
We weren't like signed to any multi-fight deals. They were just single fight contracts.
It was just single fight. Because I was going to say, because there seemed to be a lot of people signed over in Europe, and then obviously the pandemic hit, and then a lot of those people then were released from their contracts because Bellator couldn't do the shows over here and stuff like that. How badly were you guys hit by the pandemic? Because you weren't part of necessarily a lot of the other trilogies and stuff like that. Was that a very, very difficult time for you guys?
I had a decent year in the pandemic year. Considering a lot of people had no fights whatsoever.
Yeah.
I had 2 fights on a good stage.
Yeah, I just had the one last year, and it was a loss, which was pretty shit, but just got to plow on. We just sort of heard through the grapevine that Bellator will not be doing much European stuff.
We just didn't know when the events were coming, so we went,
yeah,
right, let's go to Cage Warriors. Let's get these active fights in, right? Because they've proved consistently they can get your fight many times a year. If you're ready to fight, they'll get you a fight, and it'll be a fight that makes sense.
That's the main, like the big thing with Cage Warriors is like we can have like almost like a schedule in a year. Like, oh, so you're going to fight this month, and this month, and it's like, I can just like. Before that, we were sort of almost in limbo with fights where, even with Bellator, it's like both the Bellator fights I had about 6-ish weeks notice for, maybe a bit less. And then just after that, the Samoan fight, it was like I wanted another fight, but then there was just no opportunities for it, which is why I ended up taking just some random short notice fight in Croatia, which was fun. Those kind of stories are mint, but it's kind of like,
we lost money on that.
Yeah, we lost so much fucking money on that fight. Like I proper and just I came out like well out of pocket from that fight.
Why did you come out of? Why were you out of pocket at the end of it?
The pay was all right, but it was like
the PCR tests, the self isolation tests, all the stuff like that.
So there was. It's pretty standard fare that if you're fighting internationally, they'll pay for one cornerman's fight. But I wanted Pete there, so I paid for his flights, and then so I had to pay, his tests, and then mainly is Stroop waffles, because we had to we had to fly back through Amsterdam, and it was like, right, well, I'm getting a lot of Stroop waffles, so I bought enough Stroop waffles to last me for like a couple of months maybe. But that hit the pocket quite hard.
Yeah, I was getting pizzas like 4 or 5 times a day from they had a brass oven type thing in the hotel, so I was trying every pizza on the menu. And I had like a tuna and olive pizza, which was mental because that's a fairly standard combo. It was like tuna, olives, and onions. But the olives there was like 4 of them, whole olives, and they just had the pits in. So I'll go to bite in this pizza with olives in it, and they just were like, nah, throw the olives on, don't take the pits out. And I nearly broke my whole jaw.
The vibe I got from most of Croatia was, like I've never been. It was during a pandemic, and it was airport security, and he kind of like looked at our passports a bit. Why are you here? What, sport? And he was like, nah. And it was like, that was it. It was just the vibe I got from pretty much everyone. Like the service was quite slow in the hotel restaurant, but it wasn't bad service. It was just.
I came away from cornering you and that with like quite a few £100 down and about 10 kilos up.
I remember it was like the journey home was one of the most stressful days of my entire life, because we get to the airport in Croatia to fly home, and then the woman's like, "You need PCR test to get back in the UK." We're like, we didn't know this. So then we get, I think it was just a lateral flow test in the airport in Croatia, which lets us get on the plane to go to Holland. And then we've got like 6 hours staying in the Schiphol airport, whatever it is, in Amsterdam. And in that entire time, we had no idea if we were going to be allowed back in the UK. We were just like, I was like, and then we got told we had to fill in this form that we didn't know. Then we got told we had to buy more tests for when we got home and had to do all this isolation stuff. And then when I was handing over the test that was almost certainly the wrong test, it wasn't someone from the government who was like looking over the stuff. It was just some poor lass who worked for the Dutch airlines, who probably just couldn't be asked dealing with all the shit Boris has made her do. So was, yeah, that's good. And I was like, fuck. And then Pete went missing for a bit, and then we thought he wouldn't get on the flight because he had to fill in all this stuff. And then the flight got delayed, but very stressful day. One of the best trips of my life.
Well, it sounds like you got some good stories out of it, at least.
Yeah, it was mint. And then, like, I did George did his dickhead pizza celebration. I think the guy I fought's nickname was the Croatian cowboy. So it was like the moment I beat him, one cow pow. And like, and then I had loads of people asking what that's about. So I don't know if that's just going to be like a calling card of us, like very specific celebrations that no one's in on.
I've also read on one of your the vlogs, your cornerman training partner Leon compared him to Buddy the Elf.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that?
Oh, he's a very, like, I don't know, he's just not seen much of the world. He is from, like, genuinely, he's from one of, like, the roughest parts of Middlesbrough. It's called Doggy. Like, there's multiple reasons why. Some people say it's called Doggy because there used to be dog fighting. Some people say it's just because the field there's shaped like a dog. But he's from Doggy. And it's proper rough. But I don't know, he's just this proper big kid, but he's...
That was like one of the first times he's been at like a big proper city. It was when we went to London. And when we got off the train, we were saying, if you say all right to someone, now then, how are you doing? They're just going to give you an evil stare. So when we walked up and down the street, he was going, all right, mate. And there were just all these Southerners just absolutely disgusted at him. It took him
going, off at this. He would keep going, like asking all these. Oh, he's class Leo. Like genuinely, a lot of people think he's quite daft, but I think he's a bit like Carl Pilkington. Like he just sees stuff differently, and like the way he sees stuff is funny. But genuinely, like he will be, like, he will be someone in fighting. Like he's really good at learning how to fight, and he's mint at fighting. And he had his debut shortly after that, so he'd cornered us at a professional level before we'd cornered him at an amateur level. But he had his debut, and the guy he fought sold like hundreds and hundreds of tickets. So Leon just started swearing at all the people. Like he just started sticking his middle finger up out the cage at the hundreds of people booing him. He started showboating in the fight. He took the guy down and then started like repeating the guy's corner advice to him. Like the guy's corner said, "Get your hand on his head." He's like, "Go on, get your hand on my head. Get up, you pussy." "Oh, you go on, get up. You can't get up." And then like afterwards, like did a proper awkward handshake with the guy. Goes back to the warm-up room and he's like just capitulated on the floor. It's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have talked to him. I couldn't breathe. I was fucked." And he's like, oh, heads are hard because he hurt his hand a bit.
Bringing him along to this one. This next.
Yeah.
No.
We'll bring him. It's good we couldn't like show him more of London because he was still like wide-eyed and amazed by just the view from out of the hotel window. But it's like it'd be good to like show him like Buckingham Palace and all the touristy bits. Because like just even in the taxi when we were driving to the hotel, he was like, "Look at that! Oh my god, there's a thing! Oh, like taxi." That's so cool.
What did he say? You lost the sound a bit. What did you say?
He said he was like,
these taxis all look like fake taxis.
These taxis all look like fake taxis.
Oh.
Well, it sounds like we've got our next guest lined up. We want to get him on the show. He sounds brilliant.
Yeah, we'll bring him along to the next trilogy. He'll be at the next trilogy with us.
probably get some open returns.
Yeah, so I can show him a bit of London the day after. If I'm not absolutely shattered. Because like after the last fight, it was a difficulty just like moving for the next week. I was just shattered. I was fucked. So hopefully I get a much easier fight. And then I can show Leon some more of London. Because then he will go like, I think if we show him like Buckingham Palace, he'll go full Buddy the Elf there.
Yeah.
Thing is though, he's quite like a, I don't know if this term's like translates, but he's quite like chewy. He's quite like, he can be confrontational when he needs to because he's from like a rough place, but he's that, and he's also this like really sort of happy, excited kid. I don't know, he's like, you know, you've obviously seen Bottom, haven't you? He's like Richie and Eddie if they're the same person. He's like if Richie and Eddie became the same person. He's kind of like that.
Oh, amazing.
We know we're coming up on towards the end now. I wanted to ask you guys how you feel about social media, because obviously it's a big part for fighters in terms of like building their brand and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of negativity that can come from social media as well, particularly for fighters as they, you know, grow with their following and all that stuff. You get people you're about to fight, fans telling you you're going to get knocked out and all that stuff. And social media in general, for a lot of people, can be quite a negative place. But a lot of fighters, you know, they kind of need it to build their brand and to eventually get bigger purses for fights and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts on social media? Do you see it as a positive thing or a negative thing?
We can both go ages without posting anything just because we forgot. And then sometimes it feels like a bit more like effort to post more stuff. But I just think all these kickboxers and stuff I follow, like these Japanese guys like Takeru and Masaki Noiri and stuff, I just think, oh, what should I post? What kind of stuff do they post that I like to see? Oh, it's like the training stuff. That's all I'm really interested in. It's like the fight clips and the training clips. So I'll try and post more like that.
And on the subject of like trolls and haters, I like that's mint.
Oh yeah,
I fucking love that. Like
I was getting a few. Dean Truman's gonna knock you out, pussy. And then I just text him back after the fight. Have a wonderful evening.
That's the best. I love that.
What did he say? He said he bet like 300 euros or something on Dean Truman, and he hadn't even watched the fight. So oh, I got loads of because my first Bellator fight, I got a really bad cut on my head, which kind of like got a lot. You know, it was very sort of gory and dramatic looking. So like Bellator put a little highlight of the fight that got like 750,000 views or something. So I was just looking through the positive comments, like I kind of just scrolled past, but it was the negative ones that were what I enjoyed the most. It was like, oh, this skinny white pussy has no power. How he does not even win. He falling, and I was just like, and then I was scrolling and I'd find another one.
The best one is someone sent us a message like translated.
Oh, the Croatia fight.
Yeah, from the live chat of Harry's Croatia fight, someone had translated a message, and when it translated into English, it was just,
like the love child of a brother and a sister. A classic Englishman.
Those are way better than my comic, to be honest.
Like, I love that. Like, mint. Like, you've put a smile on my face.
Like,
I want more abuse.
yeah, we appreciate well done, a few fire emojis and a fist and a thumbs up and stuff. But some ridiculous insult is always way more fun.
Oh dear. Okay, well, I guess all we need to say is thank you so much for your time, gents. It's been incredible. It's been honestly, I can't wait for more people to find out about you. I think like that collectively is so interesting. The dynamic there's brilliant, and there's some comedy gold that presents itself, and the fact that you do what you do when that octagon door closes, like it's exciting. And honestly, thank you so much for your time tonight, gents.
Thank you for all the kind words there, man.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, guys, and best of luck at the Cage Warriors Trilogy. We don't know who you're fighting yet. It hasn't been announced, and we don't know what day you're on yet, but best of luck for the trilogy.
Saturday.
Yes!
We'll see you there.
We'll see you there, guys. All the best.
Right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Right, let's just press